pledge the flag and have a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right, I think, Maggie, did you want to
Yeah,
amend
I'd
the
like
agenda?
I'd like to add an item to the agenda under reports of council committees, under personnel, and it would be letter E, and that would be the crossing guard salary.
All right, we have a motion to amend the agenda.
Second.
All right, and a second. Any questions about this? All right, all those in favor of amending the agenda, adding crossing guard, salary discussion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. We'll move on to citizens' requests and concerns. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share or bring up to council?
Yeah, my name's Ed Hirsch, over here in Blue Rock Road. I just wanted to mention there's been some discussion of the short-term rental policy, and I just wanted to say that I think that's a good idea, and I hope we can come up with a good ordinance for that. Stephanie and I went through the process 21 years ago of becoming a bed and breakfast, and that's an ordinance already on the books, and you know, it's good to have that. But short-term rentals are very different, and you know, 2 decades have changed things, and I think it's a good time to consider. Real briefly, there's 3 things I thought of that would be good to consider in making such an ordinance. One, of course, is the fact that it is a business. It's very different than residential rentals. Business taxes, business utility rates, business insurance, business zoning, you know, things that apply to a business should be considered. Another consideration is public safety. Obviously, our residents come first, and making sure we have safety for residents in residential neighborhoods. And then the other thing is, sometimes we don't think of the impact on affordable housing. And because of our bed and breakfast, the reason I mentioned that is because we've watched this trend for years. And, you know, being part of a lodging establishment, we watched, you know, the different developments for short-term rentals. And one of the things you always see is prices of housing for residents go up because of supply and demand. If a landlord makes his apartment an Airbnb or some other short-term rental, that's one less unit for the residents, and supply and demand just drives up the prices. And so if you're interested in affordable housing, that's a consideration. So just like that, there's many considerations. So hopefully we can come up with a good ordinance, and I just want to comment on it.
Thank you. That is on the later on in the agenda, so we'll be touching on that ordinance. Yes?
Okay, I guess I'm next, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I am trying to solve.
Could you share your
an
name?
issue.
Your name and address, please.
Jane Peterman. I've rented properties in the borough for 42 years. I bought a house on U Street about 2.5 years ago or so. And it was rented, and I paid the inspection fee, but then I decided with the new inspector that it wouldn't pass inspection after I saw the long list of items that he had. So I didn't have it inspected, but the rental fee was still there. And I went to Greg's side and asked that it be returned. And Greg said no, he couldn't return it according to the borough code. So I said, could you do a swap for another house that I have in the borough? He said, no, I can't do that. So I hired a lawyer, Jim Thomas from Lake Ingerveiler. And so about a month and a half ago, Greg Sod told Jim Thomas that this would be settled administratively. Now what that meant, I don't know, but it would be settled. So I guess the borough would send me my $70 back and I would pay the borough the $70 for the other place. That would have been okay. But to this point, I got nothing from the borough. So I'm here tonight to try to settle this because it's been like 3 months that this has been going on. And I want it off the case. So Greg's side, I don't know who deals with this, but this is unfinished business that I had with Greg.
Sure. You may not know, Greg is no longer our borough
Pardon me?
manager. Greg is no longer our borough manager.
I didn't hear you.
Greg is no longer our borough
I am.
manager. So I will take up this issue and be in touch with you.
You'll solve it.
We'll figure it out, yeah.
And how will you solve it? Will you pay me and then I pay you?
I will be discussing it with our solicitor.
You'll be discussing it
Yes.
and then let me know.
Yep.
By letter?
I can call you, I can email you, whatever your preference is.
Or will you let Rob know?
Well, absolutely, Rob will know. If you prefer to deal with Rob.
Settled. I'm tired of it. It's been 3 months.
All right, well, I will pick up the mantle and we'll take care of it.
Okay.
We'll find a
Sounds
solution.
good.
All right,
Thanks so much.
thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to reports from boards, committees, and commissions. First up is something from planning. It has not gone through the planning commission, but it is the approval of the Cross Gates Phase 2 extension to September 26, 2023. I believe we've given them extensions in the past. They just need more time to complete their process. So I will make a motion to approve the Cross Gates Phase 2 time extension to September 26, 2023. Second by Linda. Any questions? All right, all those in favor of approving the Cross Gates Phase 2 extension to September 26, 2023 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. The Parks Commission, at our last meeting, we did discuss an approval of an additional fee to address the park master plan contract. Tonight, I wanted to formally award that park master plan contract to UCH. Any discussions? So I'm making the motion to approve the park master plan, or award the park master plan contract. All right. Thank you, Phyllis. Any questions? All right, all those in favor of awarding the park master plan to UDH signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? All right. Civil service. Melissa, the first item.
Okay. Need myself email here. Okay. So, civil service would like to acknowledge the hard work on behalf of all those who have given a written, oral, physical, and polygraph tests for this round of interviews. There is a lot of time and care put into the hiring process. Our new police officer, Spencer Rios, is doing very well and getting acclimated to the department, so we wanted to just bring you up to speed on that. Tonight, I'd like to update you on our hiring process that's continuing. We have 2 candidates on our eligibility list. They are Patrick Giverson and Stephen Mulhouse, in that order. Number 1 is Patrick Giverson, number 2 is Stephen Mulhouse. The Millersville Borough Police Department detectives are proceeding, the detective is proceeding with the background checks, and then we will move forward with the next steps upon satisfactory background clearances. Do you have anything you need to say regarding that, or should I just, okay?
Nope.
Thank you for support as we continue this process. So that's where we are. We have our eligibility list and ranked order, and now we're doing the backgrounds. And so we hope to see you next month with the final ranking and presentation like we did for Spencer.
Okay. Do you need any action from us?
No, okay. I just need to make sure you're all aware of what's going on so you can. And then finally, I wanted to say when Chief Markovich, this is one thing I do need some questions on. When Chief Markovich was promoted, that created a vacancy in the lieutenant position. So now we understand, or we're realizing there's a need to fill that position. And so we would like to obtain permission to move forward with making someone lieutenant. Is there anything I'm misstating there, guys? Okay.
I move that the Civil Service Commission be allowed to proceed with posting the position of the lieutenant.
Second. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Questions? All right. All those in favor of allowing Civil Service Commission to proceed with posting of the position of lieutenant signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you. I think that we're really making some strides, and I hope that we can get things in nice order very soon.
Thanks for all the work you're doing.
You got it. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
All right. The typo on the agenda is my fault. Blue Rock.
We understood. Good and blue skies.
So I'm not sure if you have anything to share with that.
A meeting was scheduled for Thursday, July 7th at the Millersville station. There were not enough members for a quorum, so no votes were taken. The financial report was gone over in detail. The new rescue has arrived, showing a reduction to the capital budget numbers. Dwayne is going to start tracking monies for the capital fund drive for a new building. So there's a continuation of looking for sources, and Dwayne will be meeting with an architect to review the concept drawing for the new building. Options to recruit and retain members was discussed. BRFR is working on getting required hazmat certification and first aid training for all new members. Recently, there have been issues with the York County boats on the river, and it's being addressed. All incidents on the river are Blue Rock's responsibility. The motor on the inflatable boat will need to be replaced, and members are working on pricing. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Reports from council committees. First up is the Finance Advisory Committee, which did not meet. So I will bring the only action item not out of committee, and that is to approve the June 2023 financials, including the check register.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Maggie. Any questions, comments? All right. All those in favor of approving the June 2023 financials, including the check register, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Next up, we have Public Welfare, Public Works. I'll turn it over to Linda.
So the first thing on the agenda is the short-term rental ordinance, and request that our solicitor use Chapter 27 zoning, Borough of Strasburg, short-term residential rental licensing as a template to draft a new ordinance. And was that a motion? Did we have a motion coming out of that?
Yes, that was the
Okay.
that was the motion. So it doesn't need a
That
second.
was the motion,
Yes,
and it does not need a second.
correct. Is there any questions, discussion, or comments?
So there's no changes to that ordinance, we're just taking 100% of whatever somebody else does and we're making that ours? I'm
No,
sure you
not-
looked at it piece
Not
by piece.
necessarily.
Okay.
It is.
Because that's kind of what it sounds like.
It's a starting off point because our solicitor had asked several questions, and that example, it was an example that she had shared with us,
Okay.
was one that the
Just how it's
committee
laid out and
and
not details.
there are some details that will be tweaked, and of course she'll use her expertise to.
Okay, so she already knows that.
Yes.
She isn't going to get this cold and say,
Yeah,
what do you want
yeah,
me to do?
and she
Okay,
shared that
I just
it
want to double
was,
check.
it was, also, this one was suggested by our code and zoning officer, Rob, as something that fit with what she was looking for
Okay.
and what the committee felt was appropriate. It is a licensing, so people who wanted to have a short-term rental would have to come in and apply for a license and pay a fee.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll get an ordinance back and we'll
Yes.
advertise what that ordinance is. So Mr. Hirsch wants to see what the details of it
Yes.
is. That's when he'll see it. He
Yes.
shouldn't look at this other
I was
municipalities.
welcome to, but
But
it's
it
not.
might not be
the
the same as ours. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all those in favor of requesting our solicitor to use chapter 27 zoning, Borough Stroudsburg's short-term residential rental licensing ordinance as a template to draft a new ordinance for the borough, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Okay, the next subject was tree and shrub ordinance, and request that our solicitor use New Cumberland Ordinance number 674 as a reference to draft a new ordinance. The importance of this is that the trees and shrubs that are growing along the right-of-way, some of them are actually dangerous, they're dead, and we don't want them falling on people. So we discussed this in detail, so are there any questions?
Well, is there a motion?
I think, let's see, we already voted on that, right? So it's coming
We have
out.
to express it as
To
a
have the
motion.
solicitor come up with
Okay.
an
And
ordinance.
again, is
based
this
on
the
that.
same kind of thing? Has
Yeah.
she seen
Yes,
this already?
it's the same.
Pay something together, we'll look at it.
All right.
See if we like it.
And
Okay.
it does address current issues that have been brought up.
Only because this is like, again, you don't want to hear from when I was here 100 years ago, but this has always been a bone of contention with the residents. And the costs of trees and right-of-ways, and Andy's not going to make any eye contact with me because, you know what I'm talking, so I guess, where does the borough, when I read this ordinance, it really looked like they had like the city, like a shade tree commission, and they were planting trees, and they wanted to protect the trees they were planting, and that's not the case here, unless you know something. I mean, we don't.
You read that when you read
Trees.
the New Cumberland ordinance?
Yeah,
It sounded like it was.
it sounded like they were really, you can't pour because I think like their trees were being sabotaged by the property owners because you get into. Whose tree is it? There's laws in Pennsylvania that cover a lot. Then you got PP&L who's going to, cut them away from the lines. And then you got UGI in their right away. I guess I just want to make sure we think through the unintended consequences and the impact on borough residents if we create something like this.
That's a good point.
I guess that's my biggest concern.
Is this a brand new ordinance, or do we have an ordinance
No,
already?
we do not have, the only, and the reason this came up is because residents were complaining about trees and bushes in the sidewalk impeding pedestrian movement. And we do not have a mechanism within our code to penalize or ask residents to address their shrubs that, are too low or cause problems for pedestrians. So this would give us that mechanism to follow up.
How are we going to enforce it? Are we going to drive around and when we see them enforce it, or are we only going to squeaky wheel it? So somebody has to complain. So if my tree's hanging in and my neighbor complains, but everybody else sitting here's tree is doing the same thing, and your neighbor doesn't complain,
It would
nothing.
be the same process that we use for the other ordinances, snow removal. Rob, do you have any other
The sidewalk issues.
sidewalk issues?
Yes, it would be everybody in the borough, not just one person.
And also, do you have any comment on the dead trees, Andy? Because there's quite a few of them, aren't there, on the public right-of-ways?
There's a lot of dead trees right now. I mean, it's just with all the ash borers and
Weather and
lantern
storm.
flies and everything else.
Which are dangerous.
And there is some trees that are pretty sketchy, hazardous wise, but so it wouldn't hurt to have something in writing that could address it.
I know, because I probably have had in the last 18 months, 3 trees taken down, one of which cost me $7,000 to take down. So I'm just saying, it was the right thing to do, and it was a big oak and it was dying, but, you know, we just have to be ready for what we're doing and what the impact is on the resident. It's just a comment, you know, we've got a long way to go, obviously, until the ordinance comes in, but we have to have a plan for when somebody has
That's true.
an $8,000 bill that they weren't planning on. It's just like when they need a new sidewalk, because you're gonna pave the road, you know, when that happens, it's their recourse.
Andy actually just paid, his group just paid the question that was brought up by, what's his name, the other gentleman that came in, Bob Boyer. That one was taken care of already. Yeah.
Yeah, temporarily. at least.
Temporarily, yeah. So,
That's all. I just
All right.
wanna make sure we go into it with our eyes wide open on what we're doing,
I
with the
have
impact.
a question along the same line as Maggie, and that is that, you know, with the ordinance that's going to be drafted, we're going to have our solicitor work on that. Is that
Correct,
correct?
correct.
Based on everything we have here, the information we have. So, I guess my question is, we're not going to have Rob out driving around the borough looking for problems.
no.
I mean, that's what we don't want.
But if he's driving in and he sees one,
That's a different story.
Or if somebody
But if
comes
somebody
in.
Yeah.
complains,
Right.
you know, it's like, you know, complaint driven is one thing, but just nitpicking is something else, and that will not make the residents very happy.
No, you're absolutely right.
well, as long as you've got good relations with your neighbors, because,
Yeah.
you know,
We just don't know.
you don't know. But in any case, it doesn't matter, because enforcement is enforcement, you know, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
And we have a great solicitor, so I'm confident that she can draft something that will tie up all the loose ends.
And it's gonna come.
And it will come back before it gets, you know, we'll have to vote to advertise it.
And do we have any kind of information if somebody asks with those right of way? You know, we have the one-off right of ways where we actually file them with recorder of deeds, but I'm sure there are general right of ways with streets and sidewalks and that kind of stuff. Do we?
Yeah, all the right-of-way issues usually come through me.
Okay.
Someone will request it, mainly engineers,
Right.
and they'll request it for different roads or whatever. Each one's can be different, but I have that list.
That, it would probably be good to have that here in the office, just as we go through the process, or attach it to the ordinance, so people understand if, you know, what the impact is and where it impacts. You know, because I saw in the ordinance we were sending, you know, part of the thing was, I mean, you know how they come through, you know, like PP&L come through and lop, and your tree now looks like this. Well, you can't have that there. You've got to get somebody out to shape your tree so that it looks good, stays healthy, and, you know, again, because they're into that whole shade tree thing. So again, you just need to really read it and be careful.
Yeah. All right. Well, the motion is out of committee, so all those who will request that our solicitor use the New Cumberland ordinance number 674 as a reference to draft a new tree shrub ordinance for the borough. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Okay, the next item is false alarms ordinance, and Dwayne is not able to be here tonight, but Keith is in his place. If Keith, would you like to come up here so we can all hear you?
We can do that.
This has been presented to the borough before. This was asking that we have an ordinance for false alarms. Keith is going to explain the importance of it with our volunteer service.
Good evening. Most of you know me. For those that don't, I've been a member of the fire department here in Millersville for 46 years, so I have some background on the topic at hand tonight. What has happened is this topic's been brought up to council even when it was just Millersville Fire Department, and now we're in the Blue Rock stage, and it keeps coming back up. And the question is why? What changed? Well, the quaint little side of Millersville has changed because there's other people now responsible for properties within the borough that don't live here. And some of their concerns go on deaf ears. And what happens is, as your council person has said, more and more people are installing alarm systems, more and more people we're going to more and more alarms every year, and it puts a toll on the volunteers. Let me give you an example. One of the places in the borough I've been to at least 6 times at 4:30 in the morning for an alarm that's the same detector in the same hallway for the same reason. And you say to the person that shows up, sometimes with a key to the building, and says, "Can you please fix this?" And there's no enforcement policy. It goes on deaf ear. Okay? We've been to a place where just 2 weeks ago, a contractor came in to look at an alarm system. They didn't take it out of service. Fire department showed up, middle of the day. We pull up, we get out, and the guy goes, "Why are you here?" "Fire alarm to this building." "Oh, I'm doing testing." "Did you not think about taking it out of service?" And again, it goes on deaf ears. And this happens repetitively, week after week, month after month, day after day. And so, I got to be honest with you, I've probably been one of the biggest candidates to push towards something like this because it doesn't really affect the residents, so to speak. It's the commercial establishments. It's the larger facilities in the borough that the people that have power and control over don't live here. Okay? Yes, we go to the college. Yes, we go to Penn Manor. I've been to, I know almost every inside and outside of the new high school because we go there time after time after time for fire alarms. And we've had some meetings with the superintendent. We've had meetings with the developer that's responsible that Penn Manor paid for. Quite honestly, it's deaf ears. Because the fire department has no enforcement policy, or is there an ordinance on the books to actually get somebody off ground zero to do something? Okay? We go to the university. The university has a paid person that takes care of alarms. That's that person's job. We go there quite often because what? Oh, I forgot to take it out of service. So we show up in the middle of the day. I leave my work. The people leave their beds at 2 in the afternoon or 9 o'clock in the morning to go down to have her go, "I'm really sorry that I just forgot." But it goes on deaf ears. So that's sort of what this is all about. And it's gotten worse. Why? The only thing that I can think of is again, the people that are responsible for these facilities aren't good old local Millersville residents like it was back in the day. I think Commissioner Hagelgans provided the committee with some numbers of places we've been. And the numbers sort of speak for themselves. Yes, we go to Hillview at 2 in the morning for a vaping problem, and the police department's kind enough to work with us to try to curtail that. The kids have gotten really good. I'm in my room smoking marijuana or vaping, and oh my God, I set the fire alarm off, and they quickly run and turn the shower on and go, "Oh, I was in the shower. I wasn't smoking. Yeah, it's the steam from the shower." Okay? We have a lot of them on the books too. Kids have gotten pretty smart. I know that we use the disorderly noise, disorderly conduct.
Constructive conduct, yeah.
On occasions because we have repetitive offenders there too. So what I'm asking is, and what the fire commissioner is asking is to maybe take a really, really serious look and put on the books some type of enforcement to the fire alarm ordinance in the borough. And like I said, if you're worried about who it affects, it really affects the institutions and commercial stuff. Because here's what happens, and I'm going to use you all as an example. If you have a fire alarm in your house and it goes hay-wacky at 2 in the morning, you're going to fix it because you don't want to keep getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to your own alarm. So it really isn't the residents. It's everybody else. Okay? Matter of fact, I have a neighbor that lives very close to Marianne and goes, "Oh, I heard you were to school today. It's 3 o'clock in the morning," because it woke them up too. So that's what it's about. If you have questions, I'm certainly here to answer them. I don't want to waste any more of your time tonight. He provided data to you.
Also, Dwayne's perspective was how difficult it is on the volunteer fire department. That it's having a very negative impact on our fire department.
What's the old adage? After you call wolf too many times, you say, I'm not going. You know, I have people that say, I'm not leaving my supper table anymore because I know what it is. It's a false alarm. I'm not getting out of bed at whatever time because it's the same detector. That's exactly true. And she's 100% spot on. I have people that are calling, using it. I'm not coming anywhere. Okay, and then you have the case where you go to the high school on that one occasion and the dryer in the laundry room is on fire and the place is full of smoke and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but everybody I'm not getting out of bed anymore. So it causes other issues. And I appreciate your time tonight. I said somebody in the back of the room, it's about 20 years since I walked into this building for a council meeting, so no offense. That's good stuff, I guess. And just ask your consideration to actually look at the ordinance seriously.
Let me just ask you one question.
Yep.
Is it still the policy that where we might be able to help you, if we go to the high school, we are all paid police officers here, and within 2 minutes of these alarms, we're not spread out like volunteers. Is it still the policy that if our officer goes there and cancels the fire department, that that's not allowed?
Well, here's what
Because that might be one solution to help you with some of this stuff. If when we get there and it is that same thing,
well,
we can cancel the fire department. But in the past, it's been you can't cancel us.
Let me answer that. Let's talk about the 5 minutes prior to that. I'm already out of bed. My alarm, my pager has gone off. I've gotten dressed. Your officer is leaving the office.
There's no avoiding that, but I can try to slow down people coming from a long distance away that don't ever even get to their cars.
There's
and
no
come
way
rushing into the borough.
Unfortunately, the way Lancaster County is set up, there's no way to anybody. The system is not in place to do the recall. When my pager goes off, it's a digital format.
Well, it does work with EMS because we do cancel.
But they're paid people that are on the street 24/7. They're not coming from at home. They're on the street already, and it's very difficult to stop somebody that's 2 o'clock in the morning, crawled out of bed, got in their car, and basically the stopping part is when it gets to the firehouse. The damage is already done, Jeff.
Well, I understand that, and I say,
we also
I say this out of respect to help the firemen because I have a lot of respect for people who do this out of volunteer.
You know, we've had issues, and here's the other problem. And I will use any police department as a problem. How big is the high school? It's a large building. Okay, I actually went to a facility 2 months ago where they said, there's nothing wrong. The smoke's coming out of the other end of the building and the other end around the block, and you couldn't have walked through this building. So there are some, as simple as it sounds to your question, there are some problems with that. And I've been caught in those predicaments where you walk in the door and somebody goes, there's nothing wrong here. Well, there's smoke coming off your roof. What? I didn't see that. And as stupid as that sounds, that happens. Because people are embarrassed that my alarm went off and the fire department showed up.
Do you have any suggestions of how we could go about solving this? Or making sure that we have a code or ordinance to help with the enforcement?
There are quite a few municipalities that already have an ordinance on the books. Just as you took the shade tree and you were going to copy some other ordinances, there are other ordinances. And I actually think Commissioner Hagergans provided
We did have manners, but it wasn't appropriate for us.
Not be sufficient.
Was not sufficient.
That's going to cite an occupant of a building.
I'm just
never
saying,
use that for Millersville University.
I'm just saying that there are.
And I looked at Kutztown and I looked at Manheim Township. Manheim Township would be the king of an alarm ordinance, and they exempt government buildings and nonprofits. So there goes the high school and there goes student lodging. And as far as the college goes, we're not in charge of that. I have no control over that. They have their own police department, so you'd have to have a mechanism in place where their police department informs you of a violation on their own employer. I'm just saying, just as you stated, these are very specific that you're going off of for these other ordinances. This is going to take, and I understand their problem, but it will have to be very specifically constructed to our specific situation.
Has anyone taken this issue to Joselle?
No,
Not yet.
not yet.
Perhaps that's something that could be the next step. So
Right,
that
because if
she
she
could
comes
tell
back and
us.
says, well, the school and the university, you're not gonna be able to do anything there, they're gonna be.
Well,
upset.
here's a little tidbit that I will share with you, that all 11 universities in the state system know. There is a mechanism for the state system to pay the fire department. They can't pay the borough, they can't pay the police department, but there is a line item in the municipal, in their budgetary format. Because if you remember, and some of you
They
were
used
on
to.
council, we used it.
Yeah.
We got $100,000, we got
For a
$60,000.
long time, I think it was
There-
50,000.
There's a mechanism in place to.
There is, and Kutztown's is in their ordinance that 75% of the revenue from the fines go to the go to the fire department. It's in their ordinance. So that's why I'm saying I've looked at these, and it would have to be something specific.
Nothing
The
easy.
other thing that I will throw out there is there are municipalities that take it off the police department's platter and put it on the code enforcement person.
Which is what Manheim Township
Which-
does for fire. The police only handle house alarms and burglar alarms. Code handles fire. So that's another consideration.
And there is a mechanism in place currently to track these things. We track all of them, so there's
And
a
Manheim
tracking
Township has a
mechanism.
lot more commercial than we do. I mean,
Oh my
you
God.
know, I mean, like you said, our big issues are the
They have a
university.
private entity that handles it.
And I actually
They don't
thought
handle
at the last council meeting, when we had this conversation, that one of the things we were gonna do was reach out to the university and the school from council. Again, because obviously it's not getting anywhere with the fire department. I mean, I don't know if it's worth like Lauren and the chief,
You know, when they have a paid employee at the university, that's their job.
they need to.
That
do
is
it.
causing the problem, and they're well aware of it, but yet,
I think I remember that too, Maggie, and I think in this one instance, it wouldn't hurt to sit down with
Defer
the university with regard to that paid employee.
Don't go
But I
there.
still go back to,
They have their own
I
police.
think we should take this to Joselle.
Their police.
I'm asking, the fire department's asking you to look at it.
Right.
Because it's gotten to the point that in my 46 years, it's getting a little out of hand. You know, it really is.
I mean, their statistics speak for themselves. 30-some%, I think, Dwayne. It's 3% for me, for the police. So it's a specific problem for the fire company, and I agree with that. It's just, you're going to have to be very specific how you draft
I
it.
think we all agree it's a problem and it's a growing problem. Now, what do we do? So that's why I would suggest, as Maggie suggested, we did talk about working with the university, and a lot of those calls are the university, and there's a person who's charged with taking care of that, and evidently she's not doing such a good
Well,
job.
I think on a monthly basis, we have.
I can tell you the difference between when I first, in 1976, 78, there was a policy in place, in fact, speaking to your suggestion, that the police department down there respond to stuff. Unfortunately, the school higher education's lawyer said, no, that's a liability. We don't want a police officer investigating fire calls when there's people dying in dorms and whatever else. And they took it away from them. So just keep that in mind. You know, places have changed, times have changed. But at one time, that's the policy. The police department, the university went to their calls. But like I said,
I think we need to know.
the axe
what
came
is
down from the
current
top.
law, as far as the law and Joselle's recommendations. I will make a motion that we refer this issue to Joselle.
Second.
All right. We have a motion to refer the false alarm ordinance opinion to our solicitor with a second from Linda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.
That was the last public welfare, public works item. We'll move along to personnel.
Okay. A, under personnel is, none of these motions are out of committee, by the way. So I will make a motion, but each of them needs a second. I make a motion to approve the borough manager job description, which I believe council members have been provided with.
Second.
Any discussion on that? There you go, Lauren.
Phyllis, Darlene, do you have any questions?
No, I just noticed one difference from the first time I printed this out, under the competitive salary range, which started at 95,000 and went to 117, but when I printed it out, I guess it was today or yesterday when I was doing this, it was up to 125,000. So what exactly is that going to be?
So that range, we did get some feedback from people who, staff, saying that that range was not sufficient.
Yes.
I went on the Borough Association website and I found several postings for borough manager jobs. One was 80 to 105, one was 80 to 100, one was 95 to 115. The highest I found was for the city of Newcastle administrator, which was 110 to 125. So I adjusted our top end just to give us more flexibility and make sure that we're not missing out on qualified applicants.
I just
And
wanted to
again,
make sure I had the right numbers.
That you're the right amount.
Yeah, that would be, related to the candidate's experience and qualifications.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, a second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the borough manager job description, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
All right.
The next item, I will make a motion to advertise the borough manager position, and I will entertain a second, upon which we will have a discussion.
Second.
Okay.
Now,
Chris.
a discussion particularly on where we should advertise this position. I assume that Lauren's already done PSAB.
Yes, we will.
Okay. Any other suggestions for Lauren?
I think we have an Indeed account, because I think Lynn Miller had set that
Yeah,
up for us
we do.
before, so we can just, I would use that, because, for obvious reasons. And I think, old school, I still think, a Sunday paper ad is not the worst thing to do, especially when you have such a short turnaround.
And I have noticed that Lampeter has had an ad for a borough manager in the newspaper several times.
I saw that too. I think
So
like
we
I
need
want
to
to
put
say
it
like
there.
Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday maybe. I was trying to keep like when they were
Definitely
doing
Sundays.
whatever the one that has the advertisements in it. Is that
Yeah,
Thursday,
definitely
Sunday?
Sundays, definitely the weekends.
Okay.
Because some people only get the paper the day
Right.
that the coupons are
Yeah.
in it. So.
I did indicate that the deadline for applications would be August 25th. So if anyone has other ideas about places to post,
I'd probably do the township one too, not just the borough.
okay.
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
They
again,
have an
we might get somebody
association.
from Borough Association and the Township Association, I can't think of what their PT something.
Okay.
Any other suggestions?
Just the newspaper, when you advertise there, like I've been doing, does include 30 days
Of the online,
of like
For
the
free.
Job Monster, and indeed
Yep.
it goes out over all those. That's included because it's not cheap even for that newspaper ad, but then it only runs that one time in the paper. But then if you look at what you're buying with the paper,
Which you
it also
electronically.
includes for, I think it's at least 30 days in all the popular job sites.
Thank you for that.
Any other suggestions? Guess we can vote, Lauren.
Yeah. All right. The motion is to approve to advertise the borough manager position. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All right.
Are we ready to be specific here?
I I believe we are.
Okay. The next item is the interim borough manager role, and we can appoint Andy. A motion?
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to appoint Andy Boxleitner as an interim borough manager, as well as an open records officer, the borough secretary, the borough treasurer, tax collector also. Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, sorry.
Everybody wants to second that one.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So this is Andy's big bang going out. Boy, oh boy.
Going out on top.
You're going out on top.
Ready, get that last pound of flesh.
So I've been in discussions with Andy about this role and him stepping in, not to take over the whole role of borough manager, but to be in the office to address citizens' concerns, be able to sign documents and change orders that happen, to be someone who's here in the office to help out while we're searching for our full-time borough manager. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second.
Mm-hmm.
All those in favor of appointing Andy Boxleitner as the interim borough manager, open records officer, borough secretary, borough treasurer, and tax collector, signify by saying aye.
And streets job.
Aye. All right, thank you, Andy. We appreciate your
Thank you.
ongoing commitment to the
Thank you.
borough.
Do your best.
Why did you turn so red, Andy?
Oh,
The stress just hit you, didn't it?
these next couple of months are gonna be brutal.
Yeah,
That's all
yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm used to it.
Okay, moving along. An easy item and a wonderful item to have on the agenda is a motion to ratify the non-uniform tentative agreement, salary agreement, or agreement.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Are there questions or discussion? Assume everyone's been able to review the agreement. We met in March and came to a verbal agreement that day very quickly. So it was wonderful. And then it's just been the attorneys working it out. So it's great that we can ratify this. So we have a motion and a second. If there's no questions, all those in favor of ratifying the non-uniform tentative agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Now, before I make a motion on an item that we added to the agenda tonight, the crossing guard salary, I would like to hear from both Maggie and Jeff on that item.
Sure. One of the things that, and I apologize because Jeff had talked to me a while ago about this and kind of got shuffled around, or I dropped the ball on it, but we currently have a starting rate of $11 for our crossing guards, and as you can imagine, $11 is just not cutting it anymore. He's been running that ad, it seems like months, and literally has had no applicants for it. And we have an aging group, like all the jobs, volunteer jobs or paid jobs here of current crossing guards. So what I was recommending, and I had spoken to Jeff about it to see if it seemed reasonable, was changing the rate from $11 to $15. I don't even know if $15 is going to do it, but it's a start. And then a up to $2.50 increase for existing staff, and Jeff would work that out based on years of service, with $2.50 being the top, just on what makes sense. Because if you have new people coming in at $15 and somebody making $12, you gotta be able to.
Would you be willing to phrase that as a motion, and I'll second it?
Sure. I would ask that we increase the starting salaries for crossing guards to $15. And that we give the chief leeway up to increases of $2.50 an hour for existing crossing guards.
And I will second that.
Any other questions or comments about this discussion? Chief, we do pay half of this and the school reimburses for half, correct?
That is correct. It's split 50-50 with the school district.
the chief did look into what it would cost to have to outsource, because right now what we do is if there's not a crossing guard, he has to send an officer, and they're already short-staffed. So it's just an additional to pile on our existing short-staffed police department.
And we split this 50-50 with them. Do they know we're going to increase?
They will.
And they don't.
I've had discussions
Yeah.
with Phil Gale, and
Yeah.
he knows what we're up against. I don't see any issue whatsoever. I mean, it's going to get to the point. I've had discussions with him. If we can't get them, we won't even be able to do this anymore. They'll have to add buses to the school routes and pick kids up in the borough if we can't make this happen. Because you got to realize what you're dealing with here is the safety of these little kids. That their parents let them out the door and think there's going to be a guard there on the safe route to school, and something happens, and it does occasionally happen. I don't want it to happen, but it does. And there's nobody there to cross a child. I don't even want to think about that, what could happen there.
Chris, I would say since Jeff has a relationship with him, I'll come back at the next meeting if there's an issue, but I'm
going to see him on Thursday. I'm going to see him on Thursday. We're going to a safe schools meeting.
So
I'll talk.
Okay.
All right, motion and second, all those in favor of increasing the hourly rate for crossing guards to $15 and allowing leeway up to $2.50 increases for existing crossing guards, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right,
And that's it for personnel.
thank you. All right, mayor's report.
Thank you very much. As you all know, I was at a Pennsylvania Mayor's Association meeting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this past week. And the mayors actually passed 4 resolutions that they'll be sending off to our state legislatures as showing support for these 4 bills that are being passed back and forth at this point. One of them, again, is we're supporting allowing municipalities to use radar for speed enforcement. The state of Pennsylvania is the only state in the United States that does not allow municipal officers to use radar. And every municipality is having the problems with speeding and can't do a just job of enforcing that. So that was one resolution that was passed. The second resolution that was passed has to do with state highways. We have state highways running through our borough, where the state comes in and they plow the streets in the wintertime, but the infrastructure below that is on the borough. Stormwater runoff repairs are on the borough. And I'm correct in saying that, Andy? So the resolution put forth is the association to petition the state representatives and senators to require the Secretary of Transportation of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to reverse their policy regarding the maintenance of stormwater and water drainage facilities located on state roads and highways to accept the response for the state to accept those responsibilities, and takes that expense off of a lot of boroughs and municipalities. The third one, which I think that everybody can get behind, is primary elections. Right now, primary elections are open to Republicans and Democrats to go in and vote for whoever they choose that are on their party only. But the resolution being presented to the state is the Mayor's Association petition the General Assembly to support legislation to adopt open primary elections in Pennsylvania. So if somebody is registered as an independent, they will also be allowed to go and vote for whoever they may choose. And the fourth resolution has to do with a current lawsuit brought by the Philadelphia against Ghost Guns, which is manufacturers that are producing pieces that people can assemble at home. They can buy these guns online and put them together. There's no serial numbers attached to these, but it's a resolution that we're supporting those two. Currently, there's 2 companies that are providing these ghost guns, and it's basically to support Philadelphia in the lawsuit against these 2 companies, and hope the state will get behind that as well and put a stop to it. Other than those 4 resolutions, there was a lot of camaraderie. We had mayors from as far away as a couple towns just north of Pittsburgh. So we had probably 75 to 100 mayors in attendance. great communications on things that are going on and some changes that we're looking into. So at this point, I'll turn it over to the chief to talk about the past month's report.
Okay, real quick, I'll give you the rundown for the month of June. We had 223 calls for service, 2 ordinance complaints, 1 for disorderly conduct, 1 for noise. We had 4 criminal arrests, all 4 were adult. We had 7 Part 1 offenses and 20 Part 2 offenses. Total traffic violations were 4, vehicle accidents were 10, parking tickets at 28, total vehicle miles patrolled were just over 2,800. We're getting some bike miles in now with our new bike that we got. We got 31 miles in, so we got to start. The detective and myself worked on 2 additional, more involved cases. One was a retail theft, which doesn't sound involved, but they can get very involved, at Sheets, and a child abuse case. So other than that, what Melissa said is true. Our new officer, Spencer Rios, is doing very well. Because of his experience, he will finish his FTO period before the summer's out and the school comes back and we start to get busy. So that's a big plus to take a little bit of the stress off. And with the eligibility list now with these 2 and us working on the background, we may take advantage of all the work we put into, which would allow us to be able to send people to the academy, because neither of these 2 candidates have Act 120. They would have to go to the police academy. Unfortunately, we missed the current one, which just started beginning of this month, so we won't see these 2 guys if they pass their background until about next year at this time. 6 months of the academy and 3 months of field training. But I'll take it. That provides hope for these guys. They're cranking on overtime like crazy to keep the place running, and that's at least light at the end of the tunnel, and we just keep working at it. So we're getting there.
Thank you.
That's everything.
All right.
Thank you.
And, I see our Millersville student here, so I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome, thank you so much. I'm back in town, so I figured I'd show up. Hi everyone, good to see you all. While school isn't really in session right now, we still got a lot of stuff going on. The school is still doing some seminars at the Ware Center and on campus, which have been open to the public, which has been great. As some of you might have noticed, we have a new weather radar on top of the Millersville Water Tower, which is very cool, but it is also a great service to this community, as it provides better and more accurate data on weather that's going to be happening in our area. Other than that, our signage that we discussed this past semester, well, to me, this past spring, is in full swing, and we should expect installation around July 30th, I believe. We ordered the signs, and we also ordered new sets of metal brackets as well. That's all I have to report.
And Andrew, only because you were here and sat through the false alarm conversation, if there's someone that it just can't hurt when you do your report back, if you would mention that it's an issue that we're concerned about.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to the DeSantis about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the only thing that I have to share is that I will be attending the County Boroughs Association meeting tomorrow night. Any unfinished business? We do not need executive session this evening. So if there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
So thank you, Chris. Do we have a second? Second. All right, thanks, Linda. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. 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 All right. Thank you.